my family, my history with the police department is, I started in 1989. I was first hired, and I retired a few years ago in 2020. So I had 31 years with the Long Beach Police Department, and looking back, it was one of the greatest chapters in my life. I met a lot of great people. I had a lot of very interesting cases, a lot of frustrating cases. But one of the greatest things that I was able to do was I was able to touch a lot of people and help a lot of people, and in my town. My story is it really is a Long Beach story. My family's been in Long Beach for decades. We go back way to the 20s. The Rourke family is originally from Camden, New Jersey, and Philly, and my grandfather came here, settled on Connecticut Street Avenue, 100 Connecticut, and right across the way, 2 houses away, with my cousins, Amelia's, who are here tonight, and so that was the Rourke end. The other end of my family was the Duffys. The Duffys lived up on many area places throughout Long Beach, but they settled up on Walnut Street. My cousin lives up there now, Jim Moriarty. They're my first cousins. I'm also related to Walter Belling. He's also a half cousin of mine. My father at one point was a paid fireman in town, United Firefighters Association, UFA. Actually, he was the president for a period of time. My mom was a homemaker, but she had other side jobs. And later on in her life, she worked in Long Beach Hospital, as did I, for many years. She was an institution there. So we have deep roots throughout the whole thing. Kentucky Street was where I was born and raised. Grew up down the block from Danny's place. Before it was Chauncey's. In my block on Kentucky Street, there were probably 6 or 7 year-round residents. Everyone else was summer rentals, kind of like this guy over there. Summer people.
I was jumping the roofs and
So the West End was a lot different than it is now. My first job was over at Werman's. Worked for Leo Werman on Saturday night, putting the newspapers together, the Bulldog edition. Did that for a little bit. Then I worked up at Surfside Deli for Harry and Julia Chero, and made sandwiches with Steve Kevin. And then I went up to Timothy Tubbs in the East End and worked there for a bit for Bill Corriero and the Levines, who were related to the Levines in Long Beach kind of way. Then I started my paramedic career. I started working at Long Beach Hospital. It was an EMT, and I was with the Long Beach Volunteer Fire Department, and eventually became a New York City paramedic. Did that for many years. 1986, 87, I found out about it, the Long Beach Police Department test, and because I had worked with a lot of the Long Beach cops. At that time, a lot of the cops worked for a private ambulance company, Mercy Ambulance, which was owned by Chris Cunningham, who's a sergeant in Long Beach Police. And there was another company, Albie LaGloria, owned the TWC ambulance. So the cops weren't making that much money at the time, so they all had part-time jobs. So I had known all these cops. Everybody kind of knew everybody. So they told me about the test. I took the test and did well. And there I am, back in Long Beach, and got hired and worked patrol for a while. And when I started, patrol was, we called the wheel, around the clock. We would work days and evenings and nights, and it was a grueling schedule for your body, for your family life, for your home life. But that's what everybody did. Off of my list, we call it the list that you got hired off of. It was a lot of West End Long Beach guys. The administrations of the city had gone back and forth from hiring, some mostly in-towners. Then they tried, they thought that maybe they needed to mix it up, so they started hiring out-of-town people who had no connection to Long Beach. And then they went back to it. So off of my list, it was all like the Radens, the Larsons, John Whalen, the Ryans, Eddie Ryan, Chris Ryan, Sean Ryan. All these West End, Richie Horn, all these West End Irish kids Well, we threw a few East Enders in there too, but mostly West Enders. And we were all in school together. We all knew each other. We all, socialized together, and it was great. We had a lot of fun. We had a real good time. And a few years into my career, we went to 10-hour shifts, 10-hour tours. We started the community policing model of policing. We did a steady shift, a steady post that you work, and that worked out pretty well. You were the same group of guys all the time, the same sergeant, same lieutenant. And then at one point, Tim's brother Jack Radin, who was a sergeant at the time, started a street crime unit, an undercover unit, to address various issues around town. And I did that, and I did a couple rotations through that, and had a lot of success with that. 1996, Jack Radin again asked me if I would be interested in doing a new program that had been started out in Los Angeles that was being instituted by police departments throughout the country. It was called the DARE program. It was an anti-drug program, an education program that was taught by uniformed police officers within the public school system. I thought it was a great opportunity to bridge the gap between the police department and the school system. So I took on that responsibility, got trained. I trained with some officers out of Suffolk County, and I took the training program up in Schenectady. And we started the program. Nobody really knew what it was going to be about, and nobody knew the impact that it would have. But fortunately, with the cooperation of the school district and the teachers and the community, the PTAs, the program exploded. And when at its height, we were teaching in all 5 schools, all 4 public schools. Long Beach Catholic, under the guidance of Sister Pat, asked for it to be taught there also. We expanded into the middle school, and then I became a school resource officer also, and I worked at the Long Beach High School. So we had a lot of information going back and forth, and it was great because one of the things that worked particularly well within the Long Beach community, like at Atlantic Beach and Lido, was that we all kind of know each other. In a couple of minutes I've talked to you, find connections with different families. So in the years I taught the program, I taught for 8 years and taught over 5,000 kids. And when you know those kids and their parents and their cousins and their mothers and where they live and who are the good kids and who needs a little more help, it's a great program in that it works really well with the community policing model. Because Long Beach is a small town, so as opposed to other big cities where the cop comes and can knock you in the back of the butt and send you on your way. In Long Beach, we're going to go to knock on your door and talk to your mom and dad, and we could talk to the guidance counselors in the schools and learn what kids need a little extra help. So that was a very successful program. We expanded. One of the programs that was offered was the New York Mets sponsored a baseball game in May, their promotional day, where they had all the DARE programs from this tri-state area go, and we get 25, 30 different programs run by cops, and they bring their community kids to the baseball game. And then the biggest program for the game would be honored on the field. Well, of course, Long Beach won that award every single year that we were there. Some groups would bring 100, maybe 150 people. We would consistently have 400, 500, 600 people from Long Beach go to this game. We'd have 10 school buses outside. It was a lot of hot dogs. What happened was 2 or 3 years into it, we got the PBA, rounded up a bunch of the cops and they volunteer. And the stores in town would donate stuff, and Nathan's and all different people. We would cook 600 hot dogs. We would bring them into Shea Stadium. And, so some of those kids now, some of them are here tonight, remember that game and remember going with the cops. And the cops would go on the bus with the kids. And it was just, again, a great bridge between the police department and the community. You know, the cops would get to know the kids would get to know the cops. And, you know, I feel, you know, that it was good in that it fostered a great relationship because we're all Long Beach people. So after that phase of my career,
He can use some of my time.
In 2003, I was appointed to a detective position. I worked under Howie Doman, so he was my sergeant at the time. My commanding officer at the time was Michael Taggy. And my last 17 years of my career was in the detective division. I learned an amazing amount from the gifted people I worked with. Howie being one of them. Mike Dunn was my mentor. He was my guided me through a lot of the. And when I started in the detectives, there was one computer. There was no internet. The search engine was a book on the shelf that had, I swear to you, had phone numbers in reverse order. It was an amazing career. I handled some unbelievably difficult cases. I was fortunate enough to be assigned to a couple of cold case homicides. One was in California, where a Long Beach person was suspected of a murder, and worked with the NCIS and JAG people from the Navy, California, San Diego police with Howie. And unfortunately, we weren't able to bring that to fruition, but it was a great experience. And the last case that I was involved in, which is still an open case, was from 1986 on Beach Street. There was the murder of a young Jewish yeshiva student, Chaim Weiss. He was murdered on Halloween night, Shabbos, and his murderer has never been found. So for the past 8 years, I've been working with Nassau County Homicide. We've conducted over 75, 80 interviews of former students and staff. Again, the case has not been brought to fruition yet, but hopefully at some point somebody will crack and bring peace to the family. So in a nutshell, that's my story. I've been very blessed to have had a great career, to work with all these people I've worked with all of them, and it's been a great ride, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, I'm Judy Williams Salter, my husband Gregory, my 2 children. And anyway, I am the youngest of 4. I grew up on Delaware Avenue in the West End, which is now named after my mother, Harriet Rusty Williams. And my brother, everybody knows Wally and Harriet and Brenda, and I was a baby. Anyway, the family house was bought in 1926. My son and my grandson are generations 4 and 5, still living at 65 Delaware. So, yeah.
Two grandsons now.
2 well, there's only one here. 2 grandsons. Anyway, and it was funny because when they were just getting married, his wife is from Queens or someplace. Anyway, she's like, "Oh, you guys, you're a lawyer and an accountant, you can move." And he's like, "They just named the block after my mom, my grandmother." She goes, "We're not moving." Okay, so anyway, I was a lifeguard. I was a nurse here in Long Beach, and I took the police test to aid somebody else in taking the police test who never took it, but I took it. I passed. Then my father calls me up and he says, "Listen, it's a free physical. Take a physical." So I went and I took a physical. I passed. So then they're like, "Okay, you have to do the physical fitness part." And I was like, "I have to be upstate at 1 o'clock." So I showed up at physical fitness and I said to them, "I gotta get out of here." So they were like, "Oh," I said, "I'll just do it." So they said, "Okay, do sit-ups, do run, do the..." And I did all 5 events and said, "Am I done? Can I leave?" And as I'm doing that, everyone, all the audience, like the hundreds of cops that do it, are, "I thought we could take a break in between each one. We have to do it one." And they're like, "No, we all get a break. She's got to get out of here." I passed, and I never heard anything again, and that was it. I'm a nurse. I worked as a nurse. So I'm at the beach, got to come home, Lincoln Beach, come home, get dressed to go right down the block to Long Beach Hospital. And there's a big sign in front of my house. "Congratulations, first female police officer in the history of Long Beach." And I'm like, "Mom?" I called your father. He's coming to City Hall, called work, told me you're going to be late. You have to be there 4 o'clock. So I did bring a book, and in the book, you'll see I was wearing my nurse's uniform. uniform when I got sworn in, and I believe I got sworn in with Howie on the same day. And it's in the book, all the other cops that got sworn in on the same time. Anyway, and then after that, I had to go and be a nurse. And my mother had already put in my vacation time and my resignation letter. So I never actually knew I was going to be a cop. And then I was a cop. And then they're like, you get paid to go to the police academy. Just go. And if you don't like it, go back to being a nurse. I graduated #1 out of the police academy. So I won all sorts of awards, and I was on ABC News and in the papers, and they made a big deal out of it. And I really didn't think it was a big deal until Jeannie calls me up and says, you were the first female, it's a big deal, you have to show up. So here I am with my glasses and my notes. Anyway, I got hired, and Donnie Phillips, wonderful, he was a postman. He's in his postman uniform, I'm in my nurse's uniform. He took me to find police shoes. Don't know how many stores. We finally went to like a little boy, got little size 5 boy shoes because they were black and I could wear them. There's a picture of me with no pants and my shirt on because they didn't have any pants. I had to have them tailor-made. So jokingly, my mother, I have on my gun belt and my hat and the whole thing and no pants. But I did get pants. I lost them when I rescued a boy who was 12 years old, floating out to sea, and I had to take him off, handed my gun belt to the auxiliary cop. Handed my gun belt, took off my pants, swam out, rescued the boy, brought him back, and I saw those pants again. But that's okay. I rescued the child. That was much more important. I swam for the police Olympics. The first year I was the only girl swimming against all men. And I actually touched the wall 4th, but I got 3rd. And the guy next to me, give it to the girl, give it. Oh, he was very upset. And I just kind of slumped away going, why is he yelling? He had been disqualified. At the other end of the pool, it had nothing to do with the touch. Nobody knew it, but he put up a big deal about it. So anyway, swam for the police Olympics, swam for the International Police Olympics, and had a good swimming crew in the police department, so that was fun. My nursing came in handy when I responded to a drunk driver, and I thought, diabetic, and I was like, no, drunk. So that worked out when, the lawyer calls and asks you pre-court questions and all that stuff, and I was like, I'm a nurse. I know drunk from diabetic. I said, he was drunk, so we won that case. I was on patrol one day, and I saw some kids behind the deli, so I stopped, back up the car, put the light on, they'd take off, I'd zoom up, backfire. In the morning, because I stopped, the store's open, so I stopped and I said, hey, listen, there was boys in your back alleyway. I don't know what they were doing, but they took this pipe down. They threw a Molotov cocktail. It hadn't lit. It had gone out. So they had taken it, they were going to relight it when I'm like shining the light going, what are you guys up to, like that. So that was like a big good thing that happened in my life. I did CPR on somebody. He died, but he did live long enough to donate his organs. I had to carry him in, and I brought a book, and there's a lot of things that I totally forgot about in my career. And one of them is a guy had come home, he was very, very sick, and he lived on the 5th floor, and the elevators were broken. So Rusty Colombo and I carried him up 5 flights of stairs. Is that my time?
No.
Okay. And then, okay. So anyway, I got a thank you note for carrying him up 5 flights of stairs. So that was nice. Yeah, I used to be, that's my daughter, and I actually used to be a little bit skinnier than her, so I don't know how I did anything. My gun belt, we had to cut off 4 inches off the gun belt, and I couldn't get all my equipment on, because now if I found it, I think it goes around my thigh very nicely. Anyway. Okay. Timmy likes this story. There was a bar near Gino's, big, rough, tough, big bar. So I pull up and I come walking in, and all these big guys are fighting, and everybody's I'm like, okay, what's going on? Knock it off. Are you a girl? I said, yeah, come on. And we went outside and we chatted. Well, that big old guy became one of my best friends, and that was the end of the bar fight. So it's like, sometimes they did get calls at the Long Beach police going, you're letting the cops grow their hair? There's a cop out there with long hair all the way down her back. They're like, oh, that's our first female. Oh, okay. And it was funny because I'd be on patrol and everyone's like, hey, it's Judy. And I'm like, hello. So I kind of became a celebrity without knowing it. And that was also kind of fun. And then my father calls me from City Hall, and he says, they're going to call you. You're supposed to go on vacation, but they're going to call you to go to Florida. You're the first female, and they need a female to go to Florida with a detective to get a female prisoner. All right. Listen, we know you're going to Florida. I mean, we know you're going on vacation. Nope, I'll go. Where am I going? So, Detective Salter and I, unbeknownst to who he was at the time, went to Florida to get a female prisoner. Turns out, he calls, he goes, yep, Detective Salter, Officer Williams, we're here to get the prisoner. Oh, yeah, okay, well, how long is that going to take? Well, I don't think that's going to be approved. All right, I'll get back to you. So I'm like, what's going on? But detectives, officers, and it's like, oh, man, I was like, okay. So he calls up, whoa, they've arrested her down here. They won't let us take her home. In other words, we had a lovely time in Florida, the city's time, and came back without a female prisoner. So she was like, yes. She was like, take me back to Long Beach. And they were like, oh, wait a minute, we have a warrant for your arrest. So
Clearwater was a very nice city.
we had a lovely time, went out to dinner. But anyway, so that was it. Then a year later, and then I officially met him at another time. Right, everybody's so time. Okay. Anyway, so, quick, I was only on for less than 6 years, that's fine. And in that time, my very first DOA was on the floor in the living room, and turns out a year later I bought that house. And then it turns out a little while after that, I married the detective who showed up at that crime scene. And it just happened.
It was fate.
It was fate. So, and then I had my son, and I went on maternity leave, and before I could go back to work, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I said, I'm not going back. So I did not go back to work, but I do get my pension, so I'm very thankful. And people ask me, and then I went back to being a nurse after that, school nurse. But anyway, what I miss is driving fast with lights and sirens. So now I just drive fast. I try not to. But anyway, I think that's like my whole list. I think I've done it. No time to spare.
I am one of 7 children. My mom and dad were born and raised here as well. Most of you guys know, I'm sure. They grew up on Illinois Avenue. My mom was in 81 and my dad was in 80. So they knew each other from very young. Then my dad worked on Wall Street at the time when I was a little boy growing up. And then he opened up a sporting goods store, All Seasons, which was in Long Beach, which I'm sure some people knew about that one. And me growing up, I worked there a little bit. I was a waiter a lot. I worked at David John's. I worked in a whole handful of restaurants. My favorite being East Point Inn, which I used to have a lot of people come visit me there. And now that's a parking lot. And I was a lifeguard also. And then I really wanted to be a fireman growing up because I liked playing hockey, and I played hockey with all the guys on the fire department team in the city, and I wanted to be a fireman, so I took the fire test. And in between waiting for that, the Long Beach police test came up. So I signed up for that. And then one night I was going out, I met this girl I wanted to go on my first date with, and I was walking out the door on a Saturday night. My mother said, where are you going? I said, I'm going out, and I met this girl. She says, no, you're not. Tomorrow morning is the police test. So I stayed in, I took the test, and then ended up getting called for that job in 1984. So prior to all that, though, I want to say I do have history in the police department prior to 1984. I actually brought a photo here. My grandfather, who I never met, Thomas, was a Long Beach policeman in the 30s and 40s. And he was on a pistol team, which, I don't know if you guys saw this picture already, which we were joking they looked like a bunch of gangsters. And, like we said, maybe they were, we don't know. But, so this is back in 1936. Timmy, you want to pass it around?
Timmy, sit down and show it.
Sit down and show the camera. I can't think I'd read birds. Got it? But So yeah, so he was a motorcycle. He was a policeman and a motorcycle cop, which I do have another picture. Not as nice as this. It's a little beat up picture that someone gave me, and this is, I'll show it up to the camera, but I can hand this around, and you guys may know some of the people in there. That was 1935. So he passed, I don't mean that, but the names. So, get myself in trouble. But,
I wasn't born till 1950.
okay. You don't have to say the names. The names are on there that you may know. And then, so he passed away before I was born. And then my next connection to the police department was my uncle, Marty Bergen. He was my dad's sister's husband. And he was a motorcycle policeman also. And then one time in the early 60s, I don't know if you guys remember, there used to be traffic lights on Park Avenue, and there would be like a flower, like a little retaining wall around it, and the traffic light would go up and go over each side of Park Avenue. There was no lights going north to south, just east and west. And he was riding his motorcycle, I think it was 1965, and two boys on a bike were cruising across, it's either Washington or Lindell. Depends on who I ask the story, they tell me different blocks, and he swerved out of the way from hitting the boys. And I knew one of them was Billy Spar. Remember the Spar family? Billy was like 6 years old, and he was riding somewhere on a bike. And my Uncle Marty swerved out of the way, and he ran into the light fixture and the poles and everything there, which kind of messed him up for the rest of his life, really. But that was the start, I think, of taking those lights out and putting them up so you couldn't run into the flower boxes again. So that was my Uncle Marty. And then my brother Jack, he got hired before me. We took the test the same day. He didn't try to go out that night. But
Did you marry her?
What's that?
Did you marry her?
I did not. I never even actually did.
You never even got
You never dated.
That was it.
That was it. Boom.
Well, I have 6 children now, so I don't know how many that was. So then Jack got hired. But the day of the test, I don't know how long the test was. I don't remember, like 3 hours. A couple hours. I think it was done like an hour and a half. And Jack drove. And I'm waiting. I open up the door. Jack's the only one in there, and he's still taking. I'm like, come on, man, what are you doing? Well, it actually worked out, I guess, because he got hired a year and a half earlier. So he got on, and he had a very successful career, like Tommy said. He did a lot of programs, and he rose through the ranks. He ended up becoming an inspector, which was very nice. It wasn't a paid position. It was just the lieutenant was the top civil service paid position, and then the inspector separated it so he could tell the lieutenants what to do and not have any back to it, which he was getting as a lieutenant, telling lieutenants what to do. But actually, there was a thing I brought, the 1968, we had 4 captains here. There were a lot of captains before we got on. Actually, you can pass this around if you like, and once again, read all the different names on here, which I'm sure. You want to pass it around? Yeah. But, yeah, so then I got hired in 1984, and when Jack went to the academy, you were saying you came out #1, which is, Long Beach people always did great in the academy. My brother Jack, he won a physical fitness award, so they gave him a plaque, and they also, the best thing about it was, back then they bought you the service revolver, so they would give it to you for free, and they would engrave it. So then when I went there in 1984, I won a physical fitness award, and I think, at least up to that time, we were the only 2 brothers that had ever won a physical fitness award in the police academy. It may have changed over the last 40 years, but I hope not. But so then I got on 84, and I started working there, and like you said, it was great. I worked with all these guys. Everybody was on when I got on, except for Judy.
I retired in 84. I had Timmy.
In 84, okay. So I actually was in 84 in the academy. I got out in 85. And then I worked patrol, like Tom said, I worked around the clock, which was terrible, but wasn't so terrible, because there was really no tour that I liked steady. So it was like, all right, you work 8 to 4, then the next week you work 4 to 12, then the next week you work 12 night to 8 in the morning, which was the worst. I mean, you try not to fall asleep, but believe me, it was very, very hard. And then in 1997, I think, I got promoted to sergeant. I actually went to sergeant school with Greg here. We went to sergeant school together.
Yes.
1997.
96 I got it.
96?
Yep.
I went to school with you, right?
He went to
You don't say
sergeant
you're right
school,
away.
too.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I became sergeant. and that was fun. Everything was fun. It was just a very fun job. And what else? How much time is there?
5 minutes if you want to.
What's that?
2 seconds.
5 minutes.
5 minutes left?
5 minutes.
Oh, all right, so I did what I thought. Public speaking was never my thing. Of course, I got to sit next to Tommy. He was a dad teacher, and this guy. I can talk all day long, one to one. But and then I was, as far as my family history goes, so I had besides my grandfather, my uncle, my brother, then I had my cousin Ricky Bergen, who was a policeman with me also, and then he was a sergeant with me also. And he was my Uncle Marty's son, so that was nice that he got hired. And now my cousin Tommy O'Toole is the animal control officer, and he's been there for I don't know how many years. He's been there a while already. And my cousin Joe Brand Jr. just got hired, so that's nice. So at least I got a cop out there still. I could run the lights too now, Judy, a little bit. You're out 2 years and nobody knows who you are
Nobody
anymore.
knows.
And speaking of you're the first girl, there's nothing but girls now in the police department. It's very nice, but certainly a change. And yeah, I retired in 2020, so after 36 years, which sounds like a lot of time, but boy did it go fast. And I never went sick. No, that's not true.
Who's line of duty?
But
All right, I'm Howie Domitz, and my story is going to be a little different because I don't have the roots that these gentlemen have, and ladies, and lady. But my story starts something like this. My father and my uncle were New York City cops. And as a kid growing up, I was so proud to be the son of a cop. And when we played in the streets, it wasn't Indians and cowboys, it was cops and robbers, and I always had to be the cop. All the time. I wouldn't play unless I was the cop. And because cops worked the crazy hours, my father would have company on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday night, it didn't matter, a school night, it didn't matter. Cops always at the dining room table, and my bedroom was on the same floor, and the bathroom, they'd have to go right in front of my room to go to the bathroom. My sisters were upstairs, they're sitting right here. And the stories they would tell were unbelievable. And I'm not even really going to tell any of them, but the one I remember the most. And that's my father's best friend from when he was a child. He was a detective, and he was accused of shooting a fleeing felon in the buttocks without cause because when he inspected his pants, there was no hole in the pants. So he was going to get in all sorts of trouble, right? And then they put the guy on the stand, or they questioned him, I don't know how it went because I don't remember, is he goes, I would have got away, but my pants fell down. So he was exonerated. But these are the kind of crazy things that I heard as a kid. And from that age, that's all I was ever going to be. There was no lawyer, accountant, nothing like that. It was going to be a policeman. I don't know how, but it was going to happen some way. And then when I turned 8 years old, long and behold, my mother becomes a New York City cop. Right? So, and my sisters will vouch for this. I never got away with anything. Right? It was like walking into a detective division with 3 detectives and a hot light coming down on you, and they get me to fess up to everything, you know? And then a couple of years later, my father's friend was looking for a half rental down on California Street for the month of August. So my father and uncle said, we'll take it. So that was when I was 12 years old. So that was the first experience in Long Beach, and we had the month of August. I think it was '66. Whatever year See You in September came out. That year. That's how I remember. From singing out on the California Street with the other kids. And I met so many kids that summer, and my uncle and his family also were in a bungalow. And it was 6 kids,
Yes.
4 adults, 2 bedrooms, couches, sun porches. We just slept anywhere. Nobody cared. It didn't matter. It was just so much fun. And come the end of the summer, the end of August, you have to be out September 1st. And it was very sad because I probably met 50 kids, and most of them were summer kids themselves. And I was like, this was great summer. It's so sad. So bring it forward a month, it was October, and my father and my uncle took a ride one day, and I'm outside, and I see the car coming up the street. I'm talking to my friend Tommy, and I see my father and my uncle pull in front of the house, and kind of come around quick, and they're laughing. I go, what's going on? We just bought a house in Long Beach. I said, holy Jesus! I was so excited, right? It was so great, right? And it was at 39 Alabama Street. It was $8,100, 2 stories, 2 family, illegal 2, but it was a 2 family. We had a downstairs, they had upstairs, and that was the year I met Judy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
1967, I think it was. So I was 14, you were 13, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. My best friend Jimmy liked Judy, and I couldn't go near that. Yeah. We were off limits, right?
But we
So-
remain friends.
But we stayed friends all these years, and after I also met Rick Ebrod that year, Tom's younger brother, Jeannie's younger brother, the youngest. He's the youngest,
Yes.
right? And Mickey. We all hung out together, and Ricky gets a job working for Vito at Bel Air. Everybody remember Bel Air at the end of the boardwalk?
Oh, yeah.
I think half the West End worked for him at one time. And that summer, I never worked so hard in my life. I mean, I was a paper boy, I did other jobs, but this guy worked this 7 days a week. You thought you were getting off at 5, sometimes you get off at midnight. When the crowd stopped, then you went home. So, and you see all your friends drinking beer up on the boardwalk, and you're like, you can't go, you know? Kind of stay and work with Vito. So I met so many people working for Vito. And then a few years later, my uncle and my father bought a bar on 890 West Beach Street called The Lounge. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that one. Some of you did. It became Little Sam's later on. So that was the bar. I became a bartender. So I went from working for Vito. I met so many people, cops, you name it. I met Tommy's sister. I met all the Reagans I knew. Judy, of course. Tommy, we all knew about Tommy. Tommy was our war hero. We all knew him. Yeah. And, I met him at, he was a young cop in those days, and they'd all come to Vito's. And not many came to the bar, but a few people came to the bar, the cops. But they were there more for other reasons rather than being a customer. A couple fights maybe or 2, but it was free drink. Yeah. And then one day, I'm driving a truck, and I stop at Dunkin' Donuts in Oceanside, and Andy Gillum, one of the bartenders from the lounge, was in a policeman's uniform, the Grays, right, the academy uniform. And Walter Q was with him. I didn't know Walter Q. Walter Q was about 6'5", about 250 pounds, just a big man. And Andy goes, the police test is coming up. You got to take the police test, right? I said, all right. Took the test, scored number 8, got hired. How I got hired.
I can tell you. Go ahead.
How I got hired, it was a Saturday. My sisters were at my fiancée wife's house,
Yes.
and they were all getting dresses that day. And I pull up with the truck, and they go, the police commissioner was looking for you. This is on a Saturday. That was Teddy O'Neill, right? And I'm like, what did I do? I didn't do anything, right? So I call him up. He goes, you want to be a cop? I said, yeah. He goes, be here Monday afternoon, 3 o'clock, you're getting sworn in. I got a truck with me. I got a company. And it's owned by my cousin's husband's father, the company.
Oceanside
Yeah,
Laundry.
and I was there a couple of years. So I go into the office, I say, I'd love to give you 2 weeks notice, but I'm starting at the police department Monday, right? So, Monday morning, show up at the police, Monday afternoon, we get sworn in. Next day we're told we're going to the gun range. Never shot a gun in my life. Right? Go to the gun range, we all shoot, we all pass, right? 2 nights later we're on midnights already. I never went to the police academy. I said I never heard of it. My father goes, something's wrong. I didn't even have a physical, we didn't even have the physical or the medical yet. And we were hired, I think 5 of us, the 2 Tagneys, Jack, Mike Tagney, Mike Jameson, Johnny Cesaro, who was a big family name in town, the Cesaros, right? His father worked for the city. And then went on patrol, and within days, stuff happens. And I get called in. And it's Sergeant Goodenough, he goes, Tommy, to my, not this Tommy, but to my partner, Tommy, that was training me, Tommy Moore. He goes, Tommy, get a shotgun. We got 5 puppies behind the door. Get the kid to bring him down to the bayfront and take care of him. Right? Right? And I'm like, to myself, no, right? I'm not doing it, right? So Tommy goes into the armory and I hear him in there, and all of a sudden we get a call. So now we go on a call. I said, Tommy, I said, I'll take him home, but I ain't killing him. I'll take the 5 puppies home. I'll take care of it. He goes, he's just breaking your chops. Just a rookie, you know. This is why when Tim said it's such a fun job, you know, it's not all about going on bad scenes and everything. There's plenty of that, but there's a lot of fun stuff too, and that's what you mean by having fun. You really, because the guys are really good guys.
36 years.
And you get to meet so many of them, the families, the connections, the people over the years. Tom, right? The deacon,
Hey,
right?
hey, okay. Okay.
And then just
Finish up.
one
2
little quick
minutes.
one
Yes.
2 minutes.
about my mom and dad. My wife hears this, she'll kill me. Okay. Before I was a cop, my father was involved in real estate after he retired. And even before, he was always into buying things. And he had a piece of 21 Arizona, which was the American Hotel. And now it's condos. My father had a 1/5 of it, and I would help him. When people moved out, we'd bang nails and fix it up for the next tenants. And I come home one night, and I'm maybe 21 years old. And my father goes, I was working in an apartment, and in the closet was a Gerber baby food jar of these colored cigarettes. And I said, yeah, marijuana, right? And he goes, no, that guy wouldn't have marijuana. He said, go look in the closet. So I go to the closet. They're watching the Islander game, by the way. So I go in the closet, and I look at them, they're all rolled up marijuana joints, right? So my father goes, light it up, right? Permission from my father. Oh, yeah, I know what it is right away, right? So I pass it to my mother, who's still a cop. Right? She passes it around, it goes around. My mother goes, I don't think it's anything. My father goes, this is a cigarette, right? I said, all right, whatever you want to say. We're watching a hockey game, and I swear on this. My father, after a while, he goes, I never noticed it before, but I can hear the hockey puck sliding across the ice. I said, you're messed up! So I got high with my parents, right? And I didn't even like it. It's all legal now, right? But I still won't. So that's our story. That's how we've been here 65 years.
My name's Tom Parker. I was born in Long Beach Hospital 77 years ago, and I'm still living in Long Beach. And I only left for a short period of time. I was to go to after high school. I went to junior college, which is 2 years. I went for 4, and I still never graduated. But that's like, you know, my real name is not Parker. Wasn't Parker. My father had changed it after I was 3 years old. I don't know how to get into why. But he had the luncheonette on National Boulevard and Park Avenue there. It was also the Granada drugstore.
Yes.
Right. And all the politicians used to come in there, you know. And I used to have to get off the bus and go to work there. And I used to hear all the bullshit, you know, that they would talk about, you know. And if you weren't a Democrat, you didn't get a job in town. There's no doubt about that, you know. It was strange. Things. We lived at 105 West Chester Street. And there were 5 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment. Right across the street was the fire department. They had the big, you know, the power there and city hall and everything like that, which I'm sorry they ever destroyed it and took down that big clock and the, you know, I have pictures of that if you want to see them later. You probably have them up here anyway. But it was Tom McCabe, who was a police, you know, lieutenant, whatever he was at the time. I was young. He used to go over to the in the wintertime. He used to go over to the fire department and get the hose and go over to behind National Boulevard and hose down the parking lot. And then it would freeze. And that's where we used to go ice skating. You know? It was really different. And then we went, and I know nobody ever is going to hear this. Then we moved, my father bought a house up in Lido, on Blackheath Road. All right? We were the third house on Blackheath Road. There was nobody there. But across the street was a Navy base. And I went to school there, and it was called the Annex.
Little
Yeah,
school.
and, all right, you
I went
that?
there.
Did you really?
Yeah.
All right, so I was wrong. Right, it went to the third grade, but they had their own cleaners, they had their own stores, they had their own jail. It was really different, and like the thing. Then the army base came, right, and after the army base, then they started building houses. And my father got me a job at which I didn't want. Doing, building houses and construction. I didn't know shit. All I did was come home with broken fingers. So it was a long story short. Then I got on, after college, I just bummed around for a while. And I said, I can't take this. So I went and I boosted my draft, not telling anybody. I said, I have to go to Valley Stream. I said, the car will be parked, the keys will be underneath my father. What are you talking about? I said, see you later. I had $10 in my pocket, and I left. I knew I wasn't coming back. I got on the bus there, left the car there, had a little satchel with my underwear, and that was it. That was it. Got on the bus, boom. I wound up at Kennedy Airport, and then off to California I went. My thing, that, and the other thing, and then did my time in the service, and then came home, and all of a sudden my father said, there's a cop test coming up. I said, I don't want to be a cop. I really did. But what else was I going to do? I had nothing else to do. So I took the test, and I don't know how I passed, but I did. And I got hired within, 6 months. I was hired. I said, wow, this is crazy. Anyway, so I had a great career there, met a great bunch of people.
No.
I met some people who weren't so great, to be honest with you. I went through 9...
They're not here today.
I went... They're not here. They're not here. I went through 9 police commissions. All right?
Name them.
And I can name every one of them, and some were very good, and some were very, very bad, and politics always has something to do with everything.
Yeah.
And make a story short, long story short, I retired in 1989, I acted just a little bit over 20, and that's it. I'm here today, and I'm happy for it, and got a great family. And I'm still living in Long Beach, and I'll die here.
And your mom works in the library.
Oh, yeah, right, I didn't look at, Oh, and I got to, he mentioned Dean's place, Timothy Tubbs, but before that, does anybody know what it was?
Russo.
Russo.
Yeah, the
Russo's
Italian
Italian
Oh,
restaurant.
I didn't know that.
Timothy
Yeah.
Tubbs, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it's gonna be tough.
I didn't come to Long Beach
Mickey
till
Knox
just
on
Timothy
that.
Tubbs.
Knox.
I kind of
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
funny story about Timothy Tubbs, which is really kind of gross.
Well,
But
you-
anyway,
Well, you
okay,
used to
our
drink there.
rookie, we would do, he went on a few months before us, so it was all 9 or 10 of us that came on, and the lieutenant took us around to a poor guy who went into a bus to warm up, and he burned his chest and died. And then there was a guy who hung himself, and he was green and black and bloated. But he's like, I've been on this job for 30 years, I've never seen any of this. And we're all on the job for a week going, we could do without it. But anyway, we fine. And in order not to look at the poor deceased man, I'm looking at all the paperwork and, checking out everything. So afterwards, we come out of the scene, and he's like, what was he wearing? What's his name? What's it? And I'm like, I have all the answers because I didn't look at him. So I call my friend since first grade. I was like, oh my God, I saw this guy. And I give her the name, and she goes, do you have your high school book? I go, yes. She goes, look him up. We went to school with him. I go, oh my God, 6 something? Gee. I think you're right. Well, a couple of months later, we're at Timothy Tubbs. And in walks the deceased, it wasn't him. And her and I just went, and we let it goes, it wasn't him. So we were very happy it wasn't him. I never would have recognized him.
like to add a little bit here?
Everybody said everything.
No,
You took all my lines.
good.
You ready?
Sure.
I'm Greg Salter, Judy's husband. We've been married for 40 years. I don't have Long Beach sand in my shoes. I was born and raised in Queens. I saw an article in the Long Island Press at the time. Some of you may remember that. Long Beach was given a police test. At the time, I was working on Rikers Island as a corrections officer. I said, what the heck, give it a shot. So I drove out to wherever they gave the test, City Hall, I don't know, took the test and figured that was it. Maybe a year later you get notified, come take the physical part, the agility, all that stuff. It was at Lindell School. Pouring rain, all much, you guys, we all pass. Now you don't hear another word till July of '73. My father calls me where I'm living at the house and he goes, you gotta go down to Long Beach, Captain Sutcliffe wants to see you. Okay, so I work my way down to Long Beach. They do a quick background on me. I go in the room, there's a bunch of captains sitting there and they ask you a bunch of questions. One of them was, well, if your mother went to a red light, what would you do? I said, absolutely nothing. So, needless to say, they hired me. Okay, Howie and them, I was hired in July of '73. They put me in a tan uniform. Mark Chalvin they hired 10 of us that year. It was a Republican in power. That was one of the things they were running on. Look what we did for the police department. I didn't care who was in power. I was going to be a cop. Mark Chalvin was the range officer. He took a whole bunch of us down, taught us how to shoot. When I was on corrections, you had to qualify anyway, because if you worked in the transportation part of corrections, where you're taking the prisoners from Rikers Island to the courts, you had to be armed. So I'd already qualified, so I had a little knowledge about how a gun worked. Rumor has it, when I told corrections that I was leaving them, I was going to Lawrence to be a cop, I seen skipping over the Hazen Street Bridge, jumping for joy. I don't know if that's true, but I may believe it. Went to the academy finally in October of '73. Me and a whole bunch of other guys. Graduated in January '74. Patrolman, detective, patrolman again when we had a police commissioner who had been a patrolman. Went back to the detectives again and worked with Howie, with Tommy, for years. I mean, you know, we were like brothers almost. We had a lot of fun.
Definitely family.
Yeah.
Did a lot of hard work too, though. I made sergeant, worked midnights for a while, which wasn't bad because I had 2 kids now that were old enough to go out and go to bars. So when I was working midnights, I would give them my work phone and say, if you're in the West End and it looks hairy, call me. Well, many a night I had kids piled into my SUV, dropping them off at the house. The statute of limitations has expired, so I can admit to what I did. I know that my daughter and my son and some of their friends got home in one piece. I've been married to Julie for 40 years. We've been blessed with a son and a daughter. My daughter's a school teacher in Long Beach. My son's a lawyer. We have 4 wonderful grandchildren. Our life is busy with them. I've been down here 40 years with Judy, married, and a couple of years I lived down here on my own. So I feel like I got one shoe full of Long Beach sand. Okay, I'll never be considered a Long Beach person because I was born in Queens. Sometimes when I was younger, people go, you have an accent. I said, well, I'm born in Queens. And then I realized, yeah, we do say things a little differently.
Yes.
So I work with all these guys, including Jimmy, who just came in. You couldn't have a better bunch of guys, a finer bunch of cops, you know, and I was proud to work with them. I'm happy to be here, and I hope, you know, we shed some light as what Long Beach is about with the police department.
Thank you. Okay, a long time ago, Jimmy Fiore, whose wife is the founder of the Historical Society, and Jimmy was a policeman. Okay, he was lieutenant, all right. So in the 80s and 70s, 80s, okay, he wrote this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it does mention a lot of you. So, okay, and if I start to, well up, somebody has to read it, all right? Okay, you wrote it. I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts. Okay, this is the fall season, and the title is "We Know Where Your Children Are." Okay, so he was talking about the cops and how they participated in the community. Okay, since this is the fall season, start at the recreation field. There you will find John Daly, Ed O'Connor, Tom Marr, Bill O'Brien, Tom Parker, John Cesaro, coaching Pee-wee and junior football teams against one another. From there, you might go to the Lindell Field and watch the traveling Long Beach midget football team drilled by Al Ligori, Tom Sofield, Jack Tagney, and Jim Fiore. Pat Wren may be giving the boys a lesson in the rules and regulations of the game. If it happens to be a windy day, you may prefer to be inside. Head for the Jewish War Veterans Hall and observe Assistant Scoutmaster Bill Long, okay, teaching his scout troop. Outside, once again, get back on your mini bike and catch up with John Daly in his mini bike club down by the rec. If you decide to take up your search for what we're doing in the winter, begin at the Nassau County Ice Rink down at the Bay. You will likely find 15 to 20 policemen playing ice hockey with kids of all ages. The kids are winning 18-2. Okay, outside on the recreation roller hockey rink, freezing with tears in their eyes are Howie Domans, John Cesaro, Bill O'Brien, Jack Tagney, Ronnie Chaffer, Eddie O'Connor, and Tommy Marr. Officials John Daly and Peter Hank had the games under control. Okay, if you a little further down. Okay, Ronnie Chaffer is reluctant to question a judgment called by Peter Hank. If you forgot your earmuffs, swing over to St. Mary's Gym and catch the 8th grade CYO basketball practice. Wonder coach Andy Niagara Flash Donahue. All right. Maybe you couldn't take the cold and decided to wait until spring. Wearing your favorite team's baseball hat and your gloves, you'll see Jack Tagney and Ronnie Chaffer direct and coach the Pee-wee division of the Long Beach Little League. Mike Tagney's team is giving Brother Jack's team a shellacking. Bob Calabrese his team is giving Brother Jack, Bob Calabrese has his team out front. Eddie O'Connor and Pat Wren are in extra innings. Okay, while you're in Lido, head over to Anchor Park and watch Tommy Parker's team in the process of blowing an early lead. Sorry, don't stay too long. And this was funny. No offense, Tom, because you have to get back to the recreation center in time for Kevin's coffee. Remember Kevin's coffee? Wow. Okay, inside the rec, Pat Wren is holding an umpire's clinic. Okay. What do you know? It's summertime and you haven't found time yet to conduct the search. Put on that faded blue bathing suit. You can't afford bail. Pack a lunch, head for the beach. You have a choice of watching a youth boogie board competition, junior lifeguard program being run by John Daly. If it's not a beach day, drop in at the new Martin Luther King Center. Al Murkison will give you an idea of all the youth programs he has implemented there for the last 6 years. Al was secretary of the board of directors and chairman of the fundraising committee. Moved to East School, had a soda with Bob Samuels while he discussed the Youth Olympics and the activities he has as director of the East End Youth Board. The sun has reappeared and you have a little time to catch a Little League tournament. All right, continue out east. All right, now you're out of Long Beach to Wantor Seaford, where you are sure to spot Jim Belling coaching boys indoor and outdoor soccer. Head north to Uniondale, Marie Regina, you'll see Bill O'Brien coaching hockey. Lo and behold, there is Danny Barr teaching girls and boys soccer. He directs you back to Long Beach via a shortcut through Oceanside. You stop for a for life next to a ballpark and recognized a familiar face running a girls' softball league. No, you're not seeing things. It's Al Barnett, who was the commissioner for a very long time. We know where your children are. And that was written by Jim, and it was a real tribute to the police.
I just want to add something to that because it's funny. When I first got on, I'm working at midnight. It's like 2 in the morning, and I get a call. Patty Wren's on the desk. 10:22. Whatever. I don't even know if it was 10:22 there, whatever it was. But coming to the precinct. Coming to the precinct. I walk in. I look around. There's like 10 big like army bags. There's baseball catcher's gloves, shin pads, this, that, baseballs, baseball bats. He says, Ray, he says, I know your dad has a sporting goods store. You know all about this stuff. He says, put one piece of equipment in each bag. That was my job for like the next 4 years. 2 in the morning, just before baseball time, I'd get that call.
I'd like to ask, does anybody remember Orphans Day?
Yes, we all
Right?
remember.
Nobody ever mentions that. And
Well,
what a
we
great,
have pictures of
what a
it.
great thing that the city did at that
Yes.
point.
Yes, they did.
That was
on Long Beach
website.
All orphans.
He
Okay.
used to come down, and then he used to go across from my house on Washington Boulevard. There was the Pride
Yeah.
of Judea, and they would bring them there for
And we
Orphans
just
Day.
waved.
National
Yes.
Worldwide.
Stood and waved
Yeah.
at the
And then walk them
orphans.
down to the beach, Sunset, Sun Farm, rather.
Right, I used to be a junior lifeguard. I used to go down.
And to help my wife out, the deli that they tried to burn down was a Dilly Deli at Alabama and
Yeah.
Beach.
Oh, okay, right.
And the fellow who adopted you was Tyrone Standback.
I know who Tyrone. I didn't know if I was allowed to mention his name. But Tyrone had my back.
Tyrone.
He had
Yeah,
my
Tyrone.
back.
He's
After
probably
that,
dead then.
I was like, Tyrone, I can
He's
handle
alive, by the way.
Is he?
Gotta
I
be
asked
90.
about that.
Wow.
Oh, God bless him. Yeah, he was so excited, and I was
Drinking's
just like,
bad for you, huh?
What?
yeah.
Who do you